IVM.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into A Show About Crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
This is Storytellers and Story Sellers live on tape. You're listening to me, Vineet Kanabar, on the IVM Podcast Network. Now, all this month in August, we're bringing you independent musicians from India and around the world, or Indian origin or subcontinental origin musicians from all around the world. Today, we're talking to Saahil Bhargava. Now, let me give you a bit of background on Saahil, so you know that we're blessed to have him here. He's just put out a music video called Kohima. Actually, he's put it out a little bit earlier in the year. It's a smashing animated music video, and it's made its way to the LA Shorts Worldwide Movie Pageant, where Sahil's music video, I kid you not, is competing against Yo-Yo Ma's See Me international performance and Paul McCartney's When Winter Comes. How does that make you feel, Sahil?
Thanks, Vineet. To be honest, it's been weeks now and I still have not processed that information. Like, how can I process that? I grew up listening to Paul McCartney. I grew up watching Yo-Yo Ma playing his cello and stuff. And so these guys are absolute legends. It's such a big honor and extremely exciting to be nominated alongside them. And, you know, the video actually went live on YouTube for the music dance category 5 days ago. And so it's been amazing just seeing people's response to it, people sharing it, and just people getting as excited about it as I am, you know? But it's kind of surreal. I haven't fully processed that information yet.
I want you to talk to us about the moment you found out this was going to happen. And if you can back it up and tell us about, what it was like entering the competition and then what it was like the moment you found out.
Well, the entrance process was just simple. We submitted the application and LA Shorts International is really big. You know, it's one of the ones that, especially in the animation category, if someone wins the animation category, they qualify for Oscar consideration. And so it's a huge festival. When we submitted to that one, you know, I was just thinking like, cool, if I get selected, this will be cool. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep submitting to other festivals. You know, the entire team is very excited about Kohima's quality and everything. So we were blown away by the response that Kohima's video got from the gaming community. And so we figured might as well enter it into some festivals. But it wasn't one of those like we're entering it and this is going to be our thing. And so when I found out, I think I was waking up in the morning or I was coming off a Zoom call for another animation project. And one of my coworkers who was helping with the entrance, she texted me saying, you got into LA Shorts. And I just was like, huh? What are you talking about? And I just kept then getting congratulations messages from a bunch of other people. And I was like, oh, this is real. This is like actually happening. Right. But yeah, like I said, it's been so hard for me to process that information. It's just, I don't know, my body adjusts better to when I'm like, okay, something has happened. I need to get this, and this done than to like, oh, something good has happened. I need to just revel in the moment. I'm just kind of like fully frozen.
I know that feeling. I know exactly that feeling, but not at the scale of getting into LA Shorts, but about just any good old thing happening to you, and you're like, wait, how am I supposed to process it? But that's a different feeling. This isn't the first animated music video sort of you've put out, or is it? I've seen a few lyric videos. There's a bunch of different styles you've done with previous songs like Moon and Mama and Rain. Those are the two songs you've done.
Moon's a good title for the future. Thank you for that.
it really is. But yeah, talk us through being an animator and a musician, how that works for you, right? What's that process like?
Well, technically Kohima is the first animated music video I put out, but Mama had an animated lyric video. And before that, we tried live action, but I noticed very quickly that filming during the lockdown was going to be very tough. And that was actually like the week before they went into full lockdown in LA. So I got lucky with the filming there. But in terms of the process, I mean, I write very story-driven music. All of my songs are currently short stories. Each of them has a character arc and a sort of theme that's specific to that song that I'm trying to express through that character's emotions and opinions. You know, the bit of me that you actually hear in the song is coming from the theme and the subtext rather than the actual context of the song. And so all of my songs naturally lend themselves to being turned into some kind of video presentation. And in terms of animation, you know, I work in animation right now as my other job when I'm not singing, songwriting, composing. I'm the head of teen and adult animation for Rainshine Animation here in LA. And so,
wow.
you know, I've been working on animation.
But that's like a proper...
That's a proper job,
and proper job, right? Like like, oh, I'm really good, like an indie animator, this like cool guy who does things. It's like a proper job.
Yeah, no, it's a full-time job, and the music is also turned into a full-time job. So the answer to how I do it is I don't sleep. That is not healthy. No, but actually though, if you guys have any advice on cloning technology, I'm asking for a friend. I desperately need that. But yeah, no, it's a full-time job, and I've been working in the animation industry for Rainshine and like Rainshine's affiliate companies for the last since like 2017. And so, you know, I mean, I've been doing stuff I actually got my big start in nursery rhymes. I did a nursery rhyme channel that's still on YouTube. You can hear me voicing the little turtle and owl on that channel. Very, very different voices I should add. But like that was my start. And in many ways, the skills I learned from doing music videos for nursery rhymes have translated to now me doing music videos for my own stuff, you know, whether it's working and co-directing animated videos like I did for Kohima and Mama, or writing the scripts and musics like I did for those nursery rhymes, that now I'm writing, you know, lyrics for my own songs and then turning them into scripts for animation. All of those skills translated very well. And while now I'm not working on nursery rhymes anymore, I'm doing more feature film and film and TV stuff for the animation side. The process is not too dissimilar. You know, animation is it's a medium that requires very, very close coordination and organization between a lot of different people, you know. And I guess the key difference between live action and animation that I've noticed is that the pre-production process in animation really requires you to lock in a lot more stuff, because when you animate something, it's a lot harder to change it in post-production than it would be if you filmed something and had to edit in post-production, you know? And so animation requires very, very meticulous planning and very, very, you know, crucial communication and coordination. It's a team process, and Kohima was just the same. You know, I was working with Harmeet on Kohima. Harmeet Rahal is the co-director on Kohima. I was working with him, and he specializes more on the design side. He actually designed a lot of the artwork for Kohima as well. And I'm much more of a writer. Like I write scripts and stuff. I'm not actually good with drawing and all of them. I'm actually colorblind, so I'm really not good with colors. But you know, the two of us had to work well together to ensure that the Kohima video came out the way it did, you know, and had the level of attention to detail that we wanted in that one.
I love the way you put that. I love the connections you drew between the two. Let me ask you this. Where does the inspiration for Kohima really come from? I know I read about the Battle of Nagaland, I think.
Battle of Kohima, Battle of Imphal.
Battle of Kohima, right.
Yeah.
And again, these are aspects of Indian history that aren't really talked about that much, right? Indian history, the linear meta history that we're taught is this is what happened. The Mughals came, and then the British came, and then the struggle of independence happened, and we really don't know about all of this, right? But how did you encounter this story, and what was the inspiration? What were you going for there?
Well, actually, I was working on another project. It was another show that required me to do research on big battles in history. And I came across the Battle of Kohima while I was doing this. And it's just like you said, I noticed two things about this battle. Number one, it's not talked about nearly enough, despite being a crucial battle in not just Indian history, but World War II history as well, you know?
Absolutely.
And the other thing was, it's a brutal, just horrifying battle. I mean, these were local, you know, Naga soldiers, local northeastern soldiers who were fighting. Not just, I don't know how many of them were fighting to defend India. A lot of them were just fighting to defend their like local village, their homes, you know, their towns, their cities, all of that. And so it was a brutal battle. You know, at one point, the Japanese offensive was coming waves after waves at this bungalow, the DC's bungalow, and the Kohima soldiers were fighting across a tennis court from them. The Japanese were on one side of the tennis court, the other guys were on the other side, and they were just chucking grenades at each other, fighting hand to hand when they ran out of bullets. It was crazy. And so, when I read all about that, I kept, researching more and more about the Battle of Kohima. And that's where like the inspiration came from. The key thing, though, that I have to emphasize is that I never wanted to write a song about the whole war effort or about this strategy beating that strategy. I wanted to focus on one individual soldier. I wanted to focus on the perspective of one foot soldier, one infantry soldier, and just look at his emotions. What is he going through when he's being shelled, when his friends are being shot and all of that? The panic, the desperation, the sheer will to survive, just go back home to his family. That's what Kohima is all about at the core of it, And I thought Kohima was a great war, was a good battle to use as a reference for that, because a lot of the primary sources from Kohima talk about that. A lot of the epitaph for Kohima, which is it's pretty famous. It's the one that they have in England, actually. A lot of them reference the fact that so many soldiers gave up their lives, and these were young kids, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, gave up their lives just so that the Japanese would eventually give up on the invasion and go back. Because I don't think they, if you hadn't had the British reinforcements arrive, I don't know how long the Kohima soldiers would have been able to hold out. And more importantly, would they have been able to actually go and push back further than they actually were able to do? Like, it was very much a battle of attrition in many ways, too.
Right. I love the fact that you've chosen something that's so crucial yet underrepresented in cultural, in the stories that we tell, in the cultural landscape of
absolutely.
India. I absolutely love that you've used that as sort of a reference point. I was going through the...
I was going to say my only thing that I didn't get to do, I don't want to call this a regret, but it's definitely something I wish I'd been able to do, is I wanted to go to Kohima, I wanted to go to Imphal and actually like visit there, because that battle had a big impact on their history and their culture. I would have loved to actually been able to go there.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. It's gorgeous. That entire part. I've been to Imphal multiple times, got family there. Never been to Kohima, but been to lots of places in Imphal. It's just beautiful, man. You must. Next time
I want to play shows there, man. Like, they listen to good music up in the Northeast too. That's the place to go for sure.
Absolutely. I was reading the YouTube comments on the video for Kohima. What struck you, man, in the kind of response that it's generated? I saw a lot of comments from
gamers.
From gamers, I think it was Sinister Plays.
Sinister Plays was one. Little Zelmi was another one. We had Aman Gaming as well, Bandukbaz. There were a bunch of gamers who... I was going to say the two things that struck me was, number one, Kohima had a incredible reception from the gaming community, and we thought it might, given that so many of these guys play games like Battlefield and Call of Duty and even Fortnite, a lot of shooter games where, whether you're buying into the emotions of that game in a game like Call of Duty, or whether you're just playing something for complete, fun, like Fortnite, for example. Like, I thought that Kohima would be something that guys who play those games would at least find interesting, if not relatable, because it's very much evoking the same emotions as games like Call of Duty try to do. And so we were blown away by the level of response. The other thing I noticed was there were a lot of local people from Kohima who were commenting about, how this helped them connect to something in history, or maybe not even locals, but like people who were interested in the Indian history aspects and interested in the soldiers' history aspect of Kohima. I like to think of Kohima as an anti-war and pro-human song. It's not a song that's glorifying war in any way, shape, or form. It's very much trying to look at the perspective of how horrifying it must be to be in a battle like that. And a lot of people really picked up on that and talked about how this is not an anti-soldier song at all. I'm not anti-soldier in any way, shape, or form. I'm anti the concept of war. But, soldiers who have to fight the wars, when they're in the battle, we shouldn't be, we should try to understand what goes through their head. And, that's why I think some of the comments were talking about that. One of the comments actually quoted the epitaph that's in England, for your today, they gave up their tomorrow, something along those lines. And I pinned that one, or at least I hearted that one on YouTube. I forget the mechanics of YouTube, because that was cool. That made me nerd out as a history major for sure.
That's awesome, man. It's wonderful to see this response. It's wonderful to know that you're getting the recognition in the right forums as well as in the court of public opinion. I think you've hit a very interesting chord there with the video, definitely. Let's talk about the music a little bit. Where does that come from? What's your musical diet?
I guess I started off when I was a kid with singing. That was my bread and butter, and I was listening to singers like, Freddie Mercury, Bono, guys like that. And eventually, as I got a little older, it was Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, all the good stuff from the 90s for sure,
Right.
And that's where I got started. But I was also learning how to play a lot of like classical, romantic era piano, Chopin, stuff like that. Eventually, when I got older, I started exploring different styles. Like I played jazz piano, rock and metal guitar, and stuff like that. And I played in so many different ensembles, man. But the thing that clicked for me was when I started doing some musical theater training for my voice during college and right after college. Because, I'm also a writer and I'm a trained actor. And I found that musical theater was a place that it allowed me to kind of use a lot of those skill sets together. And that's where it clicked for me as a songwriter, because I tend to write music that's a little bit atypical, both in the lyrics and also in the music. It veers towards the rock space for sure, because that's my bread and butter. That's what I grew up on. But it also has, and especially with the next song that's coming out, a lot of cinematic elements to it that lend themselves very well to storytelling. And I found that, kind of taking some of the things I learned from musical theater and applying that to my rock music, it allows me to use all of my skill sets together, not just as a singer and songwriter.
Can you give us an example of that, about how you applied those things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. If you look at Kohima, for example, Kohima is not just me singing and songwriting. I had to kind of create the story of this character, and that involved a lot of actually, my process. I usually begin with lyrics first, and before the lyrics, I actually do stream of consciousness writing to write out the actual short story. This is stuff that no one sees but me, by the way.
Right.
And, when I'm performing, and by performing, I mean recording in the studio in this case, but also when I perform Kohima live, I'm doing an acting technique, like, it's like emotionally prepping myself to get into that guy's head. I don't want to be thinking about how am I hitting this note? How am I going to, do this, that, and the other? If I'm singing the song, I'm that guy. And that's actually, it's combining a lot of the acting and singing stuff I've learned together. And so for me, like I was saying, my music now, as it is, it takes elements of rock music, takes elements from musical theater, elements even from like classical music in a minor way, I guess, and puts it all together and allows me to use my skills as a singer, as a writer, and as an actor all in one kind of thing. And the next song that's coming out, it's the one I recorded first. Actually, that's the only song I recorded and wrote before the pandemic. All the other ones that are coming out now, or that have come out since the pandemic started, were actually done in like the peak of lockdown here in LA. That one is me exploring musical theater in my voice the most. It's the most theatrical I get. And so, I think that for me, the most exciting element of my music is the fact that because it's so story driven, I get to explore so many different worlds and emotions and characters and environments that, aren't necessarily Saahil, but have elements of, I spoke of myself in third person, aren't necessarily me, but have elements of me thrown into the subtext, the emotions, and the themes.
I absolutely love it. I feel like I'm talking to someone who's prodigiously talented and prodigiously hardworking at that talent as well, man. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it feels like you're someone who's really taken your interdisciplinary learnings very seriously and come out with something that really works for you, man. Such a pleasure to hear all of that.
Yeah, thanks,
I'm going to take that as my cue for a quick break. We will be back on Storytellers and Storysellers with Saahil Bhargava right after these messages.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Naan Curry, Sadaf and Archie stir up a hot pot of stories exploring the age-old breakfast of Old Delhi Nihari. This is a must-check out from the #1 food podcast in India. We'd like to welcome Audiogan to the network. It's an old show about design. We want to kick off this season with Jay Datta, design head at Make My Trip and Go Ivy Bo. He's also the founder of Design Up. Positively Unlimited gets a makeover. Check out the revamped show Say No to Drama with Chetna and learn how to avoid drama in your life. Home is where the heart is. Marathi Kirkitun helps us understand more about homes. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth asks the pertinent question, is jealousy good for you? And on the Musafir Stories, get introduced to the headhunters of Nagaland. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about a podcast you love. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, See It, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Back on Storytellers and Storysellers, we're talking to the immensely talented Saahil Bhargava about all the cool things that he does. Primarily, we spent the first half talking about Kohima and the great reception and the critical acclaim that the music video is seeing. Sahil, I want to talk to you about your time in India growing up as a musician, and I also want to get your notes on animation in India and what you think about that. Let's start there. Have you seen any Indian animation? I'm sure you saw like a lot of import dubbed stuff.
Everyone has seen the Ramayan animated movie that came out way back in the day, right? The one that was like inspired by Japanese style animation. I mean, that definitely, alongside a lot of like the American cartoons, was 100% my gateway to actually watching Japanese anime. So I've definitely seen some Indian animation stuff like Chota Bheem
of course.
Chota Bheem as well. Man, I need to get back into speaking Hindi. It's been a while. But truth be told, I watch so many things from around the world that I don't know if I've seen anything animated in India other than music videos recently. I haven't watched any Indian animated shows. That and the fact that living over here means that I cannot watch Indian TV as often. Like unless I get a Hotstar subscription, which I have to figure out how to do that here in the States. I'm still working on that. Yeah, I mean, it's very tough to actually watch a lot of modern Indian animation unless it's sent to me directly. But I definitely did watch a lot of that growing up. And like, you know, I learned Hindi by watching stuff like Pokemon in Hindi. I know the Hindi version of the Pokemon theme song about as well as I know the English version, you know? I want to be the very best, sabse behtar banunga main, jaisa koi aur na tha. Like, I know that stuff like the back of my hand, dude. And so, you know, I watched a lot of stuff in Hindi growing up as well, which was very cool.
I mean, why I asked you this was to get your notes on what you think of animation stuff that's happening out of India. I was talking to a bunch of people who work in kids content in India about how the time is here for India to now make original stories in animation and stuff like that. Just want to get your notes on that.
Oh man, I feel like it absolutely is because India absolutely has the production capability. There's so many incredible animated studios out in India that are doing killer work. And more importantly, India, compared to places like Japan and certainly the US, India is relatively untapped in the global market as far as storytelling is concerned, which for me is perplexing because India is it's a culture that's built on deep storytelling, both in the history and the mythology. I mean, the history goes back thousands of years, man. And I feel like it's very untapped in that regard where people could be telling more stories. But I think that if you see the way that not just animation, but Indian entertainment and Indian film and TV is developing right now, it is really turning into a very, very exciting place. There's so many incredible live action shows and stuff that are coming out. And I definitely think that over the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be more Indian animated stuff that comes out that isn't just competing at the global stage, but excels at the global stage. Because the time really is now. You know, Netflix has recently announced that they're doing a Chinese show about Journey to the West, Sun Wukong, Monkey King. And dude, our mythology beats Journey to the West. Like, let's be real here. Like, Journey to the West is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I love Journey to the West. Sun Wukong is amazing. And the entire, like, 5-man band that develops over the course of that mythology has inspired basically every single JRPG in existence. Not to mention like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto are all basically taking Sun Wukong's powers. India has better characters than Sun Wukong. You know, Hanuman is the equivalent and he's way cooler. So like my point being that India is an untapped resource, but it is a bottomless well of, you know, incredible storytelling that can come out from there. And I'm excited to see what comes from there, you know?
I love it. I think the optimism is completely warranted if we figure out our right scene and our morality scene in terms of depicting gods and the way we depict them.
That is true. That is the only thing that scares me.
Yeah, that is a little bit out there, isn't it? But yeah, man, I completely agree with you. I think the range of characters that we have simply in our mythologies, right? And now, then when you consider the number of mythologies themselves that we have, right? We've got an entirely different mythology in the Northeast, completely different in the Heartland, completely different set of mythologies in the South. There's so much more to draw from.
And also the history too. I mean,
absolutely.
It's not just the mythology, it's also the history and stuff. There's so much, even pre-Mughal era India, there's so much history that you can do incredible storytelling with. And I would love to see some animated historical stories told in India as well. You know, that would be very, very cool. I think there's a lot of room to show, you know, something that's kind of reminiscent of I'm trying to think of a good animated history story. Actually, I don't think there are that many, but like if you look in Japan, they use their samurai history to great effect in terms of telling both fiction and based on fiction or based on nonfiction and pure nonfiction stories. And I think India could do that too.
Right.
Like there's so much history.
Right. Absolutely. Let me flip this conversation over to the fact that you went to school not very far away from where I'm recording this at right now.
Yep.
Right? And you told us a little bit earlier about learning music from a very, very, very early age. What was that like? And did you always plan to be where you are right now, or be in that space right now? How did growing up in India and then now ending up where you are, talk us through that journey a little bit, like a whirlwind tour of your musical education leading you to where you are right now.
Yeah. I mean, my big like goosebumps moment where I realized I wanted to be a singer was when I was in school in India. Like I was performing in front of an audience, and the previous I was a wild child. Like I was always in trouble. The previous day, the principal had yelled at me like pretty bad, and like the next day,
what did you do?
Oh, I don't even remember, man. I just remember it's not a like, oh, this was that one moment. No, I was in the principal's office like every alternate day, man. I was
all the time. Right?
I was a badmash, as they say. So I was always in trouble. And I was yelled at the previous day, and then the next day we had a singing recital, and they had every single kid in class come up one by one, solo and mostly a cappella, sing to the audience. It was crazy. Wow. I can't imagine, like, I would be scared to do that now. Like that's terrifying. But I was in school in India when that happened, and in terms of like wanting to do music, because of that moment, I was already interested in singing, but I didn't realize I wanted to do it until that like goosebumps moment happened. From there on, I just kept training and training. I started to learn, I was already playing piano. I started to learn guitar. I started to learn bass guitar. I eventually had to learn alto saxophone when I moved from that school to the American school, the one that's right next to where you're at. I was learning all sorts of styles of music and stuff like that. And actually, I was in a jazz combo that used to play at Blue Frog back when Blue Frog was the thing.
Right.
Yeah,
which it isn't anymore, though.
Yeah, I know. I actually I went there to there's another place around there now. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years since I've been in India, man. I don't even know if half places I used to go to are still a thing with the pandemic. It's awful.
I'm in the same city, man, and even I don't know if they're still around. So
right. Yeah. It's
a tough spot.
What a year and a half we've had, huh?
Seriously.
But I mean, we used to play jazz shows in India. And so for me, I mean, all of my music education until I hit college was in India. I was learning in school. I was learning outside of school. I was doing whatever I can to accumulate the knowledge, because I'm the kind of guy who likes to do the research. Like if I have to research something, if I read 100 books and I only need to use 10 of those books for my research, I'd rather read as many of the 100 books as I can. And so I kind of approach it the same way with music, where I wanted to learn so much, even though I always wanted to end up as a rock singer. That was where I wanted to go.
Right.
And so for me, I think having the privilege of being able to actually go and explore those different things really, really helped shape the way I'm going to be writing, not just now, but hopefully for the rest of my career. Fingers crossed it's a long music career. We'll see.
That sounds very consistent with the way you approach a bunch of things, right? We were talking about how animation, stage, acting, theater, singing, all of it sort of comes together in building out what it is that you want to build, or creating what it is that you want to create. It sounds very consistent that you choose to learn as much as possible and then choose to do the thing that it is that you want to do, instead of sort of the corporate way of putting this would be that your skill set is multiple T's instead of just one T, where on the horizontal you have the width of your skills, and then you got depth in the T's. It's a very interesting way of learning.
I think it's honestly the modern way that a lot of creators do things these days. Like I'm sure you've heard like the hyphen thing, where like people are always trying to be actor, director, writer, all of that,
Right.
And for me, I mean, I never intended to become like a hyphen type person or whatever. I really, like, if I had to choose one, I would probably have picked singing. That's my first choice as far as all of it goes. But it just kind of happened over the course of like the last 10 years or so, like when I was in college and everything as well. Like I just kept doing more and more things and started to discover that I can combine the skill sets together. And at some point I might reach a fork in the road where I have to really say that okay, I've got to put one on the back burner in order to do the other. But right now, there's never been any indication that I have to do so. So I fully intend to keep working on more animated projects, fully intend to keep singing and hopefully doing more acting down the line. And so that would be very cool.
Speaking of which, what's up next for you? You mentioned you have a new EP that's coming out, which should be out by the time this is airing, or maybe in a couple of days or so. Can you tell us about what's to come?
Well, assuming that this is coming out in mid-August, my new EP will be coming out around then as well. The EP is called Ronin. It is it's named after the title song Ronin, and Ronin is about a samurai. It's set in it's set in Japan, and it's about a samurai who has he has a dilemma that he faces. He's got to choose between doing a good thing and doing the thing that is right based on the way he's been taught, based on the samurai, the code, the code that they follow. It's essentially him questioning his honor and his duty versus what he feels is like the good thing that he wants to do in that moment. And, for me, it's a very, very different song from Kohima, from Mama, from Wind, which are also going to be on the EP along with another thing. But it also has an animation video. It's actually the animation video for Ronin has been animated by Sanjana Krishnan, who, I worked with her with support from Big Bang, who are the agency I'm working with. And she did the lyric video for Mama. So it'll have the same kind of very different style, like based on what she's done. And I actually just saw the first version of the music video a couple of days ago, and it's looking fantastic. A couple of days ago from when we're recording this, not when it's releasing.
Right.
And it's got the same kind of abstract, colorful backgrounds, colors that I can't really see given my color blindness. Very, very scary stuff for me. I'm just like, what is this? But it is absolutely beautiful. And I'm very excited to put out that music video. It's very different. The song and the video are very different from Kohima in a lot of ways, but there are similarities, Ronin is more cinematic in terms of the execution of the instruments as well. We're using a shakuhachi, which is Japanese flute. We're using a harp. We're using a cello and a violin in that one as well. Along with the guitars and obviously piano, because I'm a pianist, if you can see it back there.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a very, very different song from Kohima, but it does have some of those rock elements, and obviously I'm singing on it, so there's some stylistic similarities. And likewise, the video, it's, the theme of the EP, and I think Kohima, Mama, Wind all fit into this as well. The theme of the EP is really like what happens to a person when they lose a crucial part of themselves. It's a very introspective look. Wind was looking at the idea of being it's looking at the idea of dying, but it was also a very specific, what happens if this guy becomes a prisoner in his own body? It's inspired by the Last of Us game, where the cordyceps virus in that game takes over your mind and you're left as a passenger. You're still alive as a zombie in that game. It's absolutely chilling. And, Mama looks at the idea of losing your ability to choose, losing your ability to actually live your life. It's a very identity-based thing. Kohima is the idea of losing your sense of purpose in this huge battle and losing your life. Like, what happens when you have that? And Ronin is really this idea of losing the very fabric of your being that you've grown up knowing. This guy is a samurai who's all of a sudden having an existential crisis about what has he been doing his whole life. And so that's the core theme of the EP that this one is exploring, and it's one that I feel is very relatable to a lot of people in the pandemic who had to be very introspective over the last year and a half. I certainly had to, And so I'm very excited to see the response to this one. I'm very excited to see the response to Ronin, because it's a very, very different kind of song. It's got a slow build up to a huge, powerful explosion of emotion, which is different to Kohima, which explodes pretty much right away. And so I'm excited to see what people think about this one.
I love it, man. I love the thought throughness. Throughout the EP, the theme really comes through. The way you talk about it is just a great advert for the EP. I wish you all the best for when it comes out.
Thank you.
To wrap this up, let me ask you a few questions in a segment we call Water with Vineet.
Sure.
Tell me about what's your favorite instrument to play apart from the piano. If you didn't play the piano, what's your favorite instrument to play?
Is this from existing ones that I currently play or one that I would love to play?
We'll do that as a second.
Okay. Existing ones I love to play. If it's not the piano, I love playing guitar. It is so much fun. Or bass guitar is good too. Yeah, I'll go with guitar. I just like them all, dude.
We'll take guitar.
Yeah.
And what about stuff that you don't play? Give me like a couple that you're really looking forward to learning how to play.
I've always wanted to learn the violin. There's just something about that instrument that it's just it fascinates me. The fact that you're playing with the bow and on a fretless instrument, it has some similarities to guitar, but not really that much. And of course, the sound with it being something that can do so many different things. The violin fascinates me.
It feels a lot more abstract than the guitar, even though they have sort of similarities in how they're built. But it just feels a lot more abstract to me in the sound. But that's interesting. Give me one more if you like.
You know, I've always wanted to learn how to play a horns instrument, something like the French horn, the trombone, trumpet, I guess technically. But like any of those ones would be cool because I play the alto saxophone, so I have a good idea of what woodwind like reed-based instruments are like. But I've never been able to play like a horn instrument, and I'd love to do that. Either that or the flute would be cool too.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun addition to your already well-strung bow. For my last question on Water with Vineet, can you list down on a scale of 1 to 10 your skills as a musician, as a writer, as an animator, as an actor?
Like ranking them?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know how to do that. I guess, I mean, in terms of how I prefer them rather than my like how good I am at them, I'd probably say
how you prefer them, what your relationship is with.
It's so tough because this is such a fluid relationship where like sometimes one of them becomes more prevalent and sometimes the other. I definitely think that singing is the one I want to do the most, but it's also the one that, you know, it'll take the most amount of time to get going, especially with us not being able to do live stuff right now. Like I have to put out a lot of stuff and I have to figure out how to do, you know, live stuff despite the fact that we can't actually play to an audience. And so singing is my first joy kind of thing. You know, that's the one that I want to do the most. Then it's probably writing for sure. I think I really enjoy writing, creating worlds, working with characters and stuff. And that's why I do the job I do for Rainshine. And then acting is my third choice because for me, the thing I love most about acting is that as an actor, by default, you're working with someone else guiding you as far as like you've got a script that you're following. You're working with the director. You're working with other actors. You know, the acting style I was trained in Meisner is very much about focusing on the other people in the room. It's not really like it's all about me. It's very much about working off your partner. And what I love most about acting, and I try to apply this to my singing, is that it gets me out of my head. You know, I'm not thinking about, I'm not overthinking and overanalyzing. As I'm sure you can tell, I'm a big overthinker, very analytical person. And so acting is the most fun I have as far as just being free. You know, it's the one that I would do for fun rather than like want to do every day kind of thing. You know, that's the one that I probably find the most enjoyment with the least pressure. Where singing for me, it's the biggest physical release. It's the biggest like emotional like adrenaline high I get from like performing. But there's a lot of pressure attached to singing, mostly self-imposed, because I have such high expectations on how good I need to be, given that I've been doing it for 20 years. Whereas acting, there's the same kind of pressure because I think I'm good, but it's less of a professional pressure and more of a personal pressure, you know?
Right. I love how you composed that, even though my question was all over the place. I love how you composed
I tried
your
my
response.
best, man.
you did well.
If there's a number 4, I'll put drawing on there because I'm getting pretty proficient at drawing stick figures, and that is the extent of my skills. So it doesn't help much in animation at all.
I mean, and with the kind of skill that you have, I'm looking forward to your exhibition at
like the most
MoMA
brilliant stick figures ever. Fingers crossed I get there, man. Like, we'll see.
All right, man. I want to ask you like a better composed last question. So I'm going to do one more, right? Tell me one thing out of how you've learned singing, animation, and all the other great skills that you have, right? One thing from each, or maybe top 3 things that you've learned out of these, that you applied while you were learning all of these to get really good at it. For someone who's starting out, or for someone who's learned it for a few years, but is plateauing out and losing motivation. How did you keep going? What have you learned out of these few things? Maybe 3 principles as a cheat sheet or something like that.
In all honesty, I think the 3 principles I pick are pretty universal across all those mediums. You know, number 1 is you just got to keep doing it and practicing. I have singing drills that I do daily for 90 minutes, or like I try to do it daily as much as I can with the job and everything. You know, I treat my singing like I treat like going to a gym. Like it's like exercising the muscles everywhere, you know? And so that's the first one that I would say. And it's not just practicing like exercises like scales and stuff. You have to also be singing, like sing songs regularly, get used to singing songs. Like I'm going into the studio on Sunday for 2 new songs, which I'm absolutely not able to talk about right now. But the important thing that I want to say about that is I've been practicing singing these songs, even though we haven't locked some of the things in the songs, they'll get changed in the studio. I've been practicing like just singing with the vowels, just singing with like the style that I'm going to be using for those respective songs for a couple of weeks, for honestly, like, I wrote these a couple of months ago for like months. I want to make sure that I'm at a confident enough level with these songs when I go into the studio that I don't have to get in my head. And practice really helps with like building the muscle memory and building the confidence and also building your skill level, man. It's like when you go to the gym and you bench press and you tear the muscle fibers, you eat to recover them, and then you go to the gym and lift heavier. It's the same thing with singing. You're always kind of progressively overloading yourself, which is a bro builder term that they use here in the States that I don't know why I just used. But yeah, number one.
But it makes complete sense, yeah.
Yeah, number 1 is practice. Number 2 is, especially you mentioned like if someone's plateauing and finding themselves like a little bit jaded. And I think this applies to writing, this applies to acting as well. Like try some other styles, try some other stuff. Like you can never go wrong from trying to learn from a different school of thought. As long as you have your fundamentals set right, most styles of singing have the same kind of fundamentals. It's breathing, it's making sure your posture is right, it's making sure that you're not putting too much tension over here. There's all sorts of different things. Breathing is the most important thing in singing, and whether you're doing Indian classical, jazz, Western classical, rock, anything, the core of it is breathing. And it's the same with writing. They're all using language. So I think the best thing that I've done in my career so far that's helped me is have an open mind and try to learn as much as I can. I took jazz vocals for a semester in college. I've done a lot of rock vocals, classical vocals, and I've done the same with my writing and acting. It's for me the best way to keep myself motivated, because then when I'm in another headspace, whether if I'm doing jazz, maybe I'll try writing some jazz, maybe I'll try singing some jazz, maybe I'll try performing that. It's a very different mental approach even to like doing classical, for example. So that would be number 2. Number 3 is, and this is one that I haven't been able to do as much because of the pandemic, but I'm hoping to do more. Collaborate with other people. I mean, especially in animation and stuff like that, you're naturally going to collaborate unless you're a superstar who can do everything yourself. I am not. I have to work with animators. I have to work with designers. I have to work with people who are better than me at certain skills that they've invested their skill points into, if life is a skill tree kind of thing, And it allows me to use what I know to better effect when I work with other people. And the same applies if you're performing. Like working with other performers is fun as long as you guys have chemistry and you gel, And the only way to find out that is to try. And so that's one of the things that it's a piece of advice I'm also giving to myself, because I'm hoping to collaborate more on all of the different things I do with other people as the world is slowly opening up,
I love it. I'm glad I asked you that question. That's practice, challenge yourself and open your mind to try new things and collaborate more often as you grow as a creator and have more fun, because I think creation at the end of it should be fun.
You should love what you're doing, of course.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sahil, for spending time talking to us on Storytellers and Storysellers. I wish you all the best with the new music. Congratulations on Kohima, and I hope we hear a lot more from you and a lot more output. And yeah, that's our episode. That's Storytellers and Storysellers with Saahil Bhargava. This is me, Vineet Kanabar, saying goodbye.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM Podcast. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.
Come learn and experience the ABCDs of being queer with me, Shunetro.
And me, Farhad.
On our show, Gay BCD.
The two of us take you through our stories and experiences of being gay men in the city of Mumbai and have candid
and sometimes downright scandalous
conversations about sexuality, gay culture, and everything in between.
Catch new episodes of Gay BCD every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get all your podcasts from.